All right, we're going to get moving along here with the Global Trends track. So next up is a talk on user acquisition AI, past, present, and future, with Phil Shpilberg from GameChangersSF.
Hello. So good not to be on Zoom. Thank you guys for coming out. I'm really energized by meeting with people in person. So give yourselves a big hand of applause for coming out. Really well organized show. So thank you for having me. My name is Phil Shpilberg. I work for a company called GameChangersSF. I started the company about 10 years ago to do user acquisition and marketing kind of the old-fashioned way, what we now call the old-fashioned way, with humans doing user acquisition. And I had a really interesting experience. About 8 months ago, we were acquired by a company called Pixis AI. It's a leading marketing AI company funded by SoftBank. And the experience I've had for the last 8 months is really unique. I've watched AI kind of do work that we've done, human work that we've done for the last 10 years. And we got to compare results and really think about, what should humans be doing today with the kind of technology that we have available, and what should we be letting AI do? So what I want to talk to you today is about what I'm seeing right now, where I think things are going, what's exciting, what's scary, what's happening out there. How do I advance? Should have probably asked that before I started. It's not.
Did someone take it?
I could just have like hand signals or something.
Oh, there it is.
All right.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you. All right. So no conversation about AI can really be complete without talking about chess. And the reason is nerdy engineers like me have been obsessed with getting machines to beat humans for like 50 years. And I remember this actually. In 1997, Garry Kasparov lost to Deep Blue, right? It was the first AI that beat a human. And I know, like, if you're not a chess player, that might not sound impressive. Like, you could just put in a bunch of stuff into a computer and it'll beat a human. Turns out there's actually like 10 to the 40th power positions of chess available. You can't program that. That's like a number that starts with 1 and goes with, like, it has 40 zeros. It's a number so big, I think it's bigger than like the number of atoms in the known universe. So you just can't make a giant database. So the way that this was programmed was we programmed every kind of known opening, every known high-level game that existed at the time, and then we let it think, like make move combinations, a couple of 10 moves ahead, something like this. And we were able to beat a human. Garry Kasparov at that time was probably the best chess player that existed. And that was like a big moment. We're like, okay, we can get this kind of machine to beat a human. But the way this played is it really mimicked human play. It was like you put in rules and you taught it how to play like a human. And that got us kind of to an interesting place. But then, fast forward like 20 years, AlphaZero, which is based on DeepMind by Google, this thing knew nothing about chess, right? And what we did was we taught it the rules of chess, and then we had it play itself for about a couple of hours. And after that, it could just destroy anything out there. We're talking about humans, machines, toasters, whatever. Just to give you an idea of how, like, if you know anything about ELO system, it's kind of an interesting system that lets you compare things. Like, if I play a player here and that player plays another player, and this kind of happens at a large scale, you could sort everybody kind of top to bottom. And so like novices, people just start playing, they are like at the bottom. Amateurs, like these are people that get pretty good, like I'm at the top of that, who keep it as a casual hobby. They get up to 2,000. Experts kind of between. Grandmasters, there's like the 1,000 best players in the world are up to 2,900. Magnus Carlsen, the current world chess champion, that's his rating, 2,864, right? This is probably now the greatest chess player, better than Kasparov. AlphaZero is like, it's just like, there's no point playing this thing. If somebody asks you to play that AI, you should not. It's like racing a Ferrari on foot. Like, you would not want to do this thing. It's like you could put Usain Bolt out there and it wouldn't matter. He wouldn't, he would be a blip in the rearview mirror. So this is all kind of relevant because, this is actually very much where AI is. We're like getting into this deep mind kind of area. And so again, the reason I put this up is I want to tell you that this is what we do. And so we've done over 400 game launches. We've been doing this for 10 years, so we kind of understand how humans work really well. We've got a good process. And when we started to kind of implement AI in our user acquisition efforts, we realized a lot of the stuff that we were doing was just allocating budgets based on ROAS, for example. That's a very mathematically solvable problem. You don't really want to have humans do this thing, especially if you're starting to compete with AI. Because a human brain is made to look at like 3-4 data points at any given time and say like, yeah, that tiger is going to try to eat me or not, right? This is the way our minds evolved. What it's not good at is taking this huge amounts of data and trying to make sense of it in any way. So what we've tended to do was really simplify things. Look at audiences in a very simple way. Look at bid management in a very simple way. And so the early AI that we implemented, it wasn't really even AI. It was very rules-based. We would put in like, oh, if the CPI gets above this, turn off the campaign. I want to allocate this kind of budget to this territory, right? This is the kind of stuff we used to automate. And it was very much like early chess. It was like, here are the rules. Try to behave like a human, right? And so you got okay results doing something like that. But where we are today is the AI doesn't really need to know much except what you're trying to achieve, and then it takes in a bunch of data, and it starts to allocate these budgets in a way that we never could, right? We could never consider the amount of data points that AI could do. And so what I want you to talk to you about today is kind of the 3 takeaways I want you to have is if you're doing UA today, you've got to be messing around with AI. You've got to be starting to experiment with it because your competitors absolutely are. And if you're doing this thing just like human, you're like racing the Ferrari eventually. So, whoever, like I hope you talk to us, but whoever, whatever you're doing, you need to be working some AI into your user acquisition. The other thing I want you to think about is, okay, in that world where we're increasingly relying on technology to do work, what should humans in AI be doing? Like, does this mean that there are going to be no more jobs in user acquisition? Well, no, I think there's really great things we should be doing, and we should be dividing the labor. It's not like we don't, ride bikes anymore now that we have cars, right? There's still like things that should be done by humans. And then I want to talk to you a little bit of like after seeing 8 months of this, where I think the really interesting applications of AI in marketing are going forward. So the number one thing is you should absolutely be implementing some kind of AI in your user acquisition. The first thing is like it used to be you had to install SDKs and do all this kind of stuff. Today, like our technology is completely codeless. It's just a browser plugin. So implementation, you don't have to bother your development team. So there's really no excuse not to be getting on this AI. I'll show you some of the data, but we're seeing a 20 to 80% ROAS improvement, or whatever KPI. ROAS tends to be the KPI we're looking at, improvement over like the best human teams. And I'll show you why that's happening. And then again, to make sense of these large data sets, humans really simplify things. Computers, they don't need to do this kind of thing. They could look at ginormous data sets and actually make some sense of them. So just, this is like the average game result we've got over a month. Over a month, like looking at the way we do our A/B tests is we have a human team do UA, we look at the ROAS, then we kind of take the same parameters and take the campaign and let the AI manage it, and we're seeing on average a 58% ROAS improvement. And that's just doing bid and budget management, allocation along channels, kind of giving it a lot of degrees of freedom, going into different geos, different targets, basically letting AI pick whatever it wants with some parameters, right? Don't go over this kind of budget. There's still some guardrails, but they're not like hard and fast rules. So the more flexibility and freedom you give AI, the better results it'll come up with. And if you look at some of the stuff it's doing, it's not like what humans would do. You look at some of the audiences, you're like, I wouldn't have done that, but the results speak for themselves. So I love this one because when I started in the industry, the very old thinking about targeting is gamers are 18 to 45-year-old males, right? It sounds kind of hilarious now, but that's the way we thought about it. The kind of newer thinking was, okay, other people play games, we're going to do lookalike audiences, right? Like Facebook lookalike audiences was kind of a targeting innovation, but it was still very biased because it kind of, unless you had huge organic traffic, it mimicked what you already acquired. It just sort of doubled down on your strategy and did this kind of thing. Now, it's completely behavioral. Like you could see what the audiences are. You could do small tests, like thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of tests, until you see kind of the individual level or the whatever aggregate, right, we're allowed to look at with the way the privacy is working these days. And you could pick out those audiences. And you don't have to talk in these terms anymore about like, you know, are they RPG players or whatever. They're just, you know, people that are going to play your game. So we needed simplifications, right? Humans need simplifications. AI doesn't need simplifications. So we shouldn't be doing targeting probably going on. So humans oversimplify data sets, but humans are also much better at strategy. Like your AI is not going to come up with your marketing strategy. It's not going to try emerging channels. It's going to do a very good job on stuff that is mathematically solvable. So when I try to bucket off like what should humans be doing and what should AI be doing, don't have humans doing math. It doesn't make any sense. Like we're not going to, you know, we're not doing math on launching rockets to space anymore because why? Why would you do something like that? It's the same thing here. If it's mathematically solvable, offload it. Have AI do it. Have people thinking about what should the creative strategies be at high levels, right? We'll talk about AI in creative generation. We're getting there, but you still need to prompt these things. You still need to tell it what to look at. You still need to build repositories for it to look at. You still need to look at emerging channels that you can't automate and figure out how to tackle those. So humans are, in a way, I think we're being freed up to do much more interesting work than sit there and figure out what we should be bidding on an audience in, you know, UK on iOS. Like, why would you want to do work like that? It's, you know, it's not interesting and it's not very valuable. This is why you don't want to race with a Ferrari, right? Like, in a month, the AI can look at 1.5 million data points on average. It can take 2,000 actions. It would take a human, if a human could do this kind of work, if you could retain an employee that would do this all day, it would take them 400 hours to do that. So again, this is not something that is feasible, but it is when you use AI to do it. So like I said, the, you know, strategy is still much better done by humans. New channels, like what should your TikTok strategy be? What kind of, you know, what kind of influencers should you be engaging? AI is not going to be doing any of that anytime soon. I didn't used to have time to think about this kind of stuff, and now I do, and I'm thankful for it. And then thinking about, you know, creative at a high level, what should we be communicating? Yeah, we can generate creative, like we can, you know, we have text to images and all that, but we still need to come up with what we want to make, and that's what I think people should be doing with their time. So that's kind of where we are. That's a quick summary of what I'm seeing right now. I think it's really interesting to talk about where things are going. So we have 3 modules right now that we're using in AI. The one I talked about mostly is governance AI. That's mostly like figuring out bid and budget kind of stuff. This is what I think is most advanced right now, and it's doing a pretty good job. And that's where we're getting like the 60% ROAS improvement. We're just starting to get into targeting AI. That's the stuff about like finding the gamer grandmas. Like we're still pretty early on that. The creative AI, like it's, between the last time I gave this talk, like the whole Lensa AI thing exploded, so people understand a little better what's going on here. I'm going to tell you we're nowhere near having this thing at any kind of reasonable point for gaming. Maybe in like some verticals it's feasible, but we need video and it needs to be based on what your game looks like. That's going to take some time, but it's already starting to get there. So I think like that's going to be one of the kind of next phases of this. What I think would be extremely helpful is testing. So testing ads. Right now, we make a bunch of ads and we put them in the wild, and we have users, we have customers basically like vote with their clicks and their downloads on what the best creative is. Well, why do we need to do that? Why do we need to spend all this money doing that? Can't we create AI that will actually test our ads and mimic humans? I think that would be incredibly helpful. It would be much faster to make ads that way and be a lot cheaper. So I'm pretty excited. I think this is actually one of the earliest things we're starting to mess with this kind of stuff. And it's great because you could do the AI test and then you could do a human test and you could see if it's predicting and you could train those models. So I think that's going to be one of the first things. All right, so content creation. Yeah, like Stable Diffusion, make a very scary version of Phil, right? Like I don't know why these things don't smile, but that's coming to our games when you need to make, like if you need like an ancient beast Phil, like this is, yeah, I'm available to be licensed for games, I think. So content creation is going to get pretty cool, right? You're not going to need to, like if you have a game model and you want to put a different outfit on it, you don't need artists sitting in some studio somewhere cheap and doing this. You should be doing this with AI. It's actually getting really interesting in ads. What I think is going to start happening, what I'd like to see is we'll just plug AI into the game and we'll see which are the most compelling moments in the game. What are like the emotional turning points? Where's the retention the highest? We can take that content and start making ads with it. We don't like, that would be really useful data and we already have it. We already know what the interesting parts of our games are, but the marketers and the kind of developers can't, like for whatever reason, we don't have those conversations as much as as we should. And now we don't need to have those conversations, right? I think that content creation is coming. I don't know if you guys have seen this. This is opening all kinds of interesting questions, but there was an art show, I think it was in Colorado, and this is like Stable Diffusion AI. I think Midjourney won the contest, and it opened up all this kind of shitstorm about like what is art what's art really, right? Like, and these are interesting conversations we're going to have, but it sort of doesn't matter. Like you're either going to drive this bus or you're going to be under it. So whatever is going to happen, I think you should be driving the bus on content creation and kind of figuring out the ethical and legal questions as you go. So just as far as content creation, almost every image in this presentation was actually generated by AI. So I don't have to go to my artist actually. We have like a whole team that creates presentation art. Like I started wondering, what if I don't even talk to those guys? What if I make my own art? I almost did it. Remember there was a chess pyramid in there? I tried to make a chess pyramid. It gave me this kind of stuff. I really couldn't use it. So my art team made that. But this is like the point, right? Like 90% of what you need for stuff like this can already be done by AI. So how much easier are our jobs going to be? How much more time can I spend thinking about what I want to talk to you about versus making these images? That's what I think is exciting. So all right, back to the 3 takeaways that I want you to take. Be doing something with AI now, right? Because you'll be running a foot race against Ferraris. Human work is going to get a lot more interesting. Yeah, like there might be some less jobs, but they're going to be more interesting jobs. And finally, I think we're only at the beginning, right? I think we're going to be inventing this future for the next couple of years. So it's a really interesting time. I should mention, Eric, my business partner, wanted me to mention that if you want to come tell me that I'm crazy and that this is just insane stuff, we're at booth G19. So come tell me what you think about this and what your experiences are so far. Great. Thank you. Yeah, I'll be happy to take. Yeah. It's got to be some questions about like the ethics of AI and yeah.
Thanks very much for that. So far, how have you had pushback from team members who have found their roles becoming obsolete? And if you haven't, how do you plan to manage that pushback and keep people motivated?
No, that's like the core of the question, right? What's interesting is my team has grown while we've been implementing the AI models, and it's just the nature of their work has changed. So, I mean, I think if you look at what's happening in the tech world, I think AI is not the driving factor behind job losses. I think there are other factors at play. But it is a legitimate question. I think there will be fewer kind of traditional AI jobs, like UA jobs. Sorry, the AI UA sounds so close. I think it's almost like we're not going to stop this progress. It's just a question. What I tell my team is your job security is your skill set. That's all it is. It's not this job here. If you could keep advancing your skill set, if you become the best at using the tools that we have, you're always going to be employable. So that's all I could say. I mean, we've been dealing with this since the Industrial Revolution.